Hello, digital media production class. Today we're going to be talking about mobile-friendly websites. Different tips on how to make your website mobile-friendly if it's not already. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing to consider is why it matters whether a website is mobile-friendly or not. And the fact is that we don't view websites just on our personal computers anymore. We're consistently and more constantly viewing websites on our smartphones, tablets, and various devices, even watches. What? That still blows my mind. And there's also an increasing demand to obtain information on the go and at a moment's notice, which explains why we're viewing websites on various devices, right? So sometimes we'll get an email that has a website and we'll on our phones and we'll click on it from our phone rather than going to our desktop computer as we did in the past. And so having a mobile-friendly website makes it easier for your readers or your consumers, whatever the intention of your website is, to find the most common information. So in other words, the most important information they would need to know based on why they go to your website. And as English majors, we don't talk a lot about marketing. I know some of us shun the marketing world. But as we create websites for whether it's a teaching portfolio or for a class, it is important to think from a marketing standpoint that you only have really one opportunity to reach your target audience. So if somebody is going to look at your website from their mobile phone, for example, and they click on the URL and it's just not very mobile friendly, chances are they're not going to save that and say, oh, I'm going to look it up when I get home to my office. Like, chances are you might miss your opportunity to show your awesome information to your target market. All right, so I'm just going to show you guys a couple of examples of a non-mobile friendly website versus one that is coded for a mobile device. So the first one I pulled up is weather.gov. You can see here that this is actually a screenshot that I took with my own phone. And it's not very mobile friendly. Basically, this is the desktop version that's really condensed down into the mobile device. Okay, so I would have to physically go in there and zoom in and then go to my area, and it's just not very mobile friendly. I mean, if I was really stuck on weather.gov, then I'd certainly stick with the program here. But bottom line, it's just not mobile friendly as other platforms are. Okay, and this is different compared to weather.com. As you can see here, this is a screenshot as well. That was also taken on my phone. And the biggest difference between the two is that weather.com uses an adaptive design, which means that whoever programmed it makes it so they recognize which device you're pulling weather.com from, and so then they adapt the way it's viewed to your particular device. Okay. And I just pulled the two screenshots side by side just to give you a better comparison. Because also when I put them into the other slides, for some reason it kind of cut parts of it off. But as you can see here, this is the screenshot for the homepage for weather.gov. Lots going on there, not very user-friendly. For weather.com, you can see they based it on my location. So with their adaptive design, they were able to recognize where my device was located. So they pulled up that need-to-know information, right? Instead of just showing me the whole country, they showed me information that was relative to where I live, where my device is located. And you can also see, I wanted to point out that they also have a menu button that's easy to locate compared to the weather.gov, where I would have to zoom in and try to figure out what's going on. Okay, so with that being said, so how do you update an existing website for a mobile device? And there's a couple ways to do this to make your website more mobile friendly. One thing you can do is enlarge the text. So then that way, when somebody is viewing your homepage or whatever page you're showing them on a smaller device, they'll be able to see the information easily. You can also use CSS, the cascading style sheets, for easy transitions between the various devices. And this is most often done with responsive web design, which is put in the code. And so then that way your pages automatically adjust to existing templates for whatever device you're viewing the website on. Another thing you can do is to resize your images if necessary. So sometimes if you have images on your website that are super large, they may not translate well onto a smaller device like a tablet or a smartphone. So then sometimes that can make the website look too cluttered. So what you can do if you're using CSS, you can set your image widths to a maximum size of 100%. So then that way the images will adapt between devices. And we talked about maybe making your text larger so it's easier to read. You can also keep in mind to avoid fancy fonts. I know that sometimes we want to do special things on there to make our website stand out, but chances are if you make your website fonts, images, etc. way too fancy, then they're not going to translate very well. And so then your reader's more likely to get lost rather than respond favorably to your website. Another thing to keep in mind that you might want to try is to keep the most important information you want your readers to know on the top of the homepage. So in going back to the weather.com example, even though they were using a more adaptive web design, they were able to see, hey, that person is in Cumming, Georgia. So they are most likely wanting to know the weather in that area. And you could see that that information was at the top of their page. So then me as the user, I was able to find that quickly. Okay, and there's also different ways you can get external help for your website. I know a lot of us use WordPress because it's free and easy to use. And one thing you can use is their WordPress Touch mobile plugin. And that looks like this. Okay, so if you go to that website, it's basically just a free plugin that you can download. And it automatically makes your pages on your WordPress site mobile friendly. And so that's a really easy, free way to do that. So something to consider. And if you're wondering, well, I think my website is mobile friendly, but I'm not really quite sure, Google actually has a free tool that you can use. It's called the Mobile Friendly Test. So basically you can just enter any domain name and it'll give you like a free analytics type of deal. So let's try one out. So I'm going to type in my website. That's my teaching portfolio. It's a GSU site, which is also run through WordPress, like we talked about in an earlier class. And so Google is telling me that my website is not mobile friendly. No. So the text is too small to read. So that was one of our tips earlier, that you can make your text bigger. The mobile viewport's not set. My links are too close together. And my content is wider than the screen. So one thing I could do too is to install the WP Touch. But another thing, if you're using WordPress or really any other thing for your website, you can play with different layouts. So Google's telling me that my layout is not particularly mobile friendly, even though I thought it was pretty cool, but not cool enough for a mobile device. Okay. And so besides those two tools, if you're really lost, you can spend thousands of dollars by hiring a professional web developer, which I know as grad students, we have that kind of money, right? But that's an option that more businesses take. They'll also use more adaptive design, like the weather.com page, where instead of having pages in the responsive web design, where it just automatically switches the pages to the devices. The adaptive design actually identifies what your device is and then where it is, and then it gives you the design from there. And another tidbit too, once you've reformatted your website, you might consider using Google Analytics. That's most often used for like marketing stuff and like for businesses. But another benefit to Google Analytics for signing up for that is once you get your statistics, you can kind of figure out, well, like if my statistics are low, maybe it's because my website is not very friendly across multiple devices. So that's something to consider as well. And there is one debate between using a separate domain name for a mobile website. Some people will do that. They'll say, you know, I don't want to mess with reformatting my website to make it mobile friendly, so I'm just going to use a separate URL for my mobile website. There's a couple pros to that. So for one, you don't have to mess with the differences in code or use CSS to make your website adaptive to different devices. And of course, getting different URLs is pretty easy to do once you find the right one and it's available. But really, the cons outweigh the pros and benefits to getting a separate URL. For one, having more than one domain name for your website is not very search engine friendly. And keeping up with the multiple domains creates more work than you're probably going to want to do, and then you might find there's technical glitches on one over another, and it just creates more work for yourself. So bottom line, it's really more to your benefit to make sure your initial website is friendly for multiple mobile devices rather than just creating a bunch of different websites. Okay, and that's the end of our little tutorial here. So check out the activity, and we're going to apply some of the different tools that I showed you guys for your own websites. So thank you. See you later.